So in my father's house, there were many rooms, most of which had statues or pictures of big black bears. I guess he really liked that sort of Jeremiah Johnson vibe. Or you could say that he never met a bear he didn't like. He lived in a cabin just north of the river that snaked through town, and he absolutely loved Native American art. As you probably can imagine, the house being constructed solely out of logs created an ambiance that took on a very earthy tone. Brown hues gave this sort of sense that whoever entered the lodge was on firm ground. That was, except for his study, which told the story of the sea. In particular, there was this old shadow box that was on his wall, which held all of the decorations that used to adorn the uniforms of my forefathers. The box in itself was a story, but it had one distinguishing characteristic that left it unfinished. In the lower right-hand corner, there was this empty space. And I asked him once why the space was there, and my father, who sometimes spoke in song titles, said to me that that space was reserved for the son of a son, sailor. Betty knows I'm talking about Jimmy Buffett, don't you? Yeah. I didn't think much of his quip at the time. The rebellious nature of my teenage heart couldn't possibly imagine submitting to authority that was as strict as the US military, let alone a ship's master. And so I wandered far. Until late one evening, I found myself in Virginia, standing on a deep draft pier next to a ship that would take me across the globe, while my girls stayed at home to be raised by their mother. I didn't know it then, but that ship would take me far away from anything I'd ever known or could possibly imagine. And then one summer, years later, bring me home again, forever changed by the nature of plying my father's trade in deep water. Try as I could to avoid the call of the sea, it found me framing houses in the middle of nowhere, Michigan, that faded September when the Twin Towers fell. Callings are tricky things. Hearing them is tough enough. Following through with them sometimes means that we have to change everything. Despite the best intentions of those who would keep us close in order to take on the family business, protecting us, as it were, from the ways of the world, that is, until the ways of the world find us out anyways. And there is no doubt in my mind that Jesus heard such a call, and was probably one that didn't make sense to those around him. Nevertheless, something happened to him that allowed him to trust whatever was inside of him that said, "Follow me," despite the fact that his family thought he was nuts. Remember Mark chapter 3? Telling Mary to go get her kid. So in response to that yearning, he believed. He trusted, laying down the plane and the laves, as the song tells us, to wander the hillsides, preaching repentance, forgiveness, and love. And though the villagers only saw an uncommitted carpenter, he was nevertheless at his father's business. We who know him love him as Mary's son. Though in his days, not taking on the yoke of his father's vocation would have been seen as a rather unfortunate turn of events, especially when the need was so great in order to support a family as large as his. Sons were expected to follow in their father's footsteps, learning the intricacies of their profession under the watchful eye of their dad, until one day the son would assume the mantle of the father and be vested with the tools of the trade. As followers of Jesus, it's hard to miss the irony here. But the gospel account also reveals something else that makes it remarkably intimate and indicates how difficult it can be to swim upstream when sometimes all we are trying to do is follow the path that has been laid at our feet. But we hear that those who gather around Jesus laugh at him, they ridicule him, and they take offense at him, even as he works the miracles the people of God so long for to come true. And so I've often wondered how many miracles it would have taken for folks not to care so much that Jesus wasn't carrying around a tool belt. And dare I say that I suspect that most of us could and can relate to being laughed at, ridiculed, and maybe in turn have caused offense to someone whom we didn't necessarily mean to. I know I've been called crazy a few times. And so the line that always stops me in my tracks is where Jesus was amazed at their unbelief. On the night before I headed to Great Lakes for boot camp, Teresa and I held each other tight. In that moment, I sensed that I was about to give up something so large, so deep, that I became awfully troubled. I recall thinking that I didn't know if I could go forward with the commitment that I had just made. And so I said that out loud. To which Teresa responded, perhaps possessing the same doubts, I believe in you. I never forgot the power behind those 4 words. It gave me permission to go. And the rest is history. You might even call it a miracle, Glenn, because who would have thought Bartlesville, right? In saying that she believed in me, I realize now that Teresa was not seeking to affirm my existence. Nobody in my family, including me, was questioning at that moment. I was very much alive. In saying that she believed in me, she was saying that she trusted me, and that no matter the circumstance, she could rely on me, whether I was at home or abroad. And so whether I was being faithful to the family business or serving our country was not so much the matter as was the fact that trust was present in whatever lay ahead. And that is precisely what is not present in Jesus' hometown. To believe in God is not solely the effort to affirm his existence, or indeed whether the prophet is welcome in his hometown or not. The folks around Jesus weren't questioning God's existence. They were questioning whether they could trust Jesus given the fact that he was a carpenter who most thought had lost his way. And so, to believe means to trust, to rely on God to be there for you when you are affected by deep despair. You remember Jairus last week? Maybe it means to trust that there will be light upon your path when you are uncertain of what lies ahead. Much like that of the 2 who find themselves at the start of a very long car ride to Canada. Whatever belief is, it exists inside a person, and as such has the ability to either allow connection to happen or separation to occur, given the circumstance. And that's whether you're home or not. The choice before us then is, can we trust it? If you can, I think you believe. And so for these words that have been written so that you might believe. Trust is everything.